it's also being curious about the role beyond the one that you do today. So as I think about most of the successes in my career have come from me being curious about other parts of the organization and how I can add value. And as soon as I started being curious, I started to find opportunities where, and that has led to some truly great wins for me, as well as the organizations I've worked for, and has certainly led to some of my promotions.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Learning Pod and Epicor podcast. I'm your host, Roxanne Rodriguez, and today we are reshaping the way that you think about how you can master your own career path. Please welcome Tony Checketts. Tony is our former director of the Talent and Leadership Development team here at Epicor, boasting a career with over 15 years of experience working in the learning and development space in a variety of roles. I'm thrilled to have you here, Tony. I can't wait to hear your insights on today's topic and how people can better navigate and advance their career paths. Tony, welcome, and thanks for joining the show.
Thank you for inviting me, Roxanne. I'm really excited to be here.
So, Tony, I wanted to start off by understanding your own career journey. Did you always have a clear vision of what you wanted to do, or were there moments where you felt uncertain about being on the right path within your career?
Great question to start with. And as I think about that, actually, it's like, no, quite the opposite. I've spent most of my career not actually knowing where I was going, but even more than that, not actually giving it any thought whatsoever. And I think that kind of all stems back to really my upbringing. And I actually came from a home which was and still is very working class. And parents who were not academics, but as we would say in the UK, grafters, we call them. And what they taught me was, as soon as you're able to, go out to work. And that's what I was told, in fact, I was earlier than 16, I was 14, you're old enough, get out and work, earn some money. And my parents really, taught me the importance of getting up, showing up, and not giving up. And it was really that work hard mantra. And I'm really thankful for that, because what those lessons have given me is they've kind of made me who I am today, in the sense that they gave me the foundations to help me drive my career forward with pace and resilience. And that is thanks to them telling me and instilling in me that kind of work hard mantra. But what those lessons didn't give me, however, was a plan. And they didn't teach me the importance of future thinking, giving consideration to the bigger picture, the possibilities, my hopes, dreams, aspirations. And in fact, those things weren't even considered at all as I was growing up. So how did I, carve a successful career in learning and development without those kind of core foundations early on? Well, I fell into it, actually. And I don't mind saying that. That's okay. And it all started when I was 19, and I started work in a large UK retailer, which I think is pretty well known in the Americas as well, a retailer called Waitrose. And funnily enough, it was a job that actually my mum got for me.
Don't worry, my mom also got a job for me at one point in my life when I was younger.
So ashamed to say it, but she did. She got the job for me. I think I was working at the time, to be fair, and they were holding a big careers fair for a new store opening. And she went along on my behalf, and she got me a job. And the job role was coffee shop assistant. And I did exactly what my parents expected of me. I worked hard, I got a couple of promotions, I made it to team leader, and then eventually to manager. And I started managing the service counters and the checkouts. And this was really where my career journey started in learning and development, in the sense that I fell into it there. And the way that happened was Waitrose were rolling out this new till system across the country, and it was an absolutely massive rollout. And that meant that they had too many employees to train and not enough trainers. So my job as a manager was to deliver some of the learning to the team. And I had to go to our head office and receive some train the trainer and then deliver the training. And the feedback I was receiving from the team was actually, you're really good at this. You're better than the person they sent from head office. So I apologize to whoever that was, if anyone listens to this. But it was the trigger I really needed to inspire change. And in that moment, I started to consider, well, could I do this? Could it be a possibility for me? Well, people are saying it might, and other people do this. So why couldn't that be me? Very relevant to the book we're currently reading, actually.
Yeah.
Don't know where that is. That's here somewhere. There you go.
Talent code.
The talent code, that all talks about this trigger and how talent starts with a trigger. And that's definitely what I experienced. So what did I do about it? So I didn't just leave it as a thought. I took some action, which is kind of very typical of me, kind of before I think too much about it. And I picked up what was an internal phone book in those days, which was a physical phone book.
Yeah, we call them the yellow pages.
Oh, we had yellow pages too. Exactly. Yeah. And I looked through and I can remember just looking for learning and development and just thinking, I'll just find someone. And I found the first person in the list began with A, and her name was Anna Butcher. And I found her then. She still works for Waitrose now, or certainly the John Lewis Partnership now. And I didn't know her then, but I found her name. And she became someone who was very influential in my career and someone I now consider as a friend all those years later. And I was literally on the phone and just said, I just wondered whether you could help me. And she was really open to that. And I said, could you tell me what I need to do to be a trainer? And that was the conversation that really changed the direction of my life. And I'm really grateful to Anna because she gave me the opportunity to showcase my skills through a variety of secondments. So she said, yeah, actually, we need a trainer over here. Could you go and do that? And I was like, no worries. Give me the opportunity and I'll show you I can do it. And that led to me being offered a permanent position in Waitrose Learning and Development. And since then, I've never actually looked back. But actually, you've asked me the question, and I know that you've kind of had a significant role change, direction in career.
Well, what I find interesting is it's either when you're growing up, you know exactly where you want to go, whether that is to be a police officer or a doctor or a teacher. And I was one of those kids who I just knew exactly from the moment that I was a young child that I always wanted to teach. And I did exactly that. I went through college, university, and got my degree in teaching. And I thought that was going to be the rest of my life because it was the dream role I had always dreamed of. And I feel like when you get into a space where the role is not exactly what you thought it was going to be, it leads you down a totally different direction. But that doesn't mean that you don't have the skills to be successful. And so that's what I had to kind of learn leaving the teaching world, because I taught middle school. And that of course had its pros and cons. But I realized that I did have the skills to teach, which is a huge skill in learning and development. And it can be transferred into so many different areas. So when I was looking for a new job, I really didn't know exactly where I was going to go. And I think that was one of the scariest moments of my life I thought I had a whole career path ahead of me. I thought I knew what that career path looked like. But in reality, I had no idea at that moment in time that my career was going to totally shift. I still ended up in the learning and development space, which was amazing. And I learned that the transferable skills are applicable in so many different fields. Now, when I left teaching, there was definitely an emotional aspect that I was always going to miss. I had to tell little Roxanne that her dream worked out, but there was more for her than what she had expected. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity that I've been provided working on your team. And I think that it's shown me, and maybe it hopefully inspires other people who are also teaching, if they want to step out of that space, there's a whole world of possibilities that you can use your skills in, and you can be just as or more successful. You can be recognized, you can be encouraged by other people, and you can be rewarded for the good work that you're doing. So I know for me, my career path has definitely not been what I envisioned it to be. But I believe networking with the right people and believing in yourself definitely has at least taken me far. And I know I still have a long journey ahead, and who knows where that career will take me. But yeah, I definitely ended up somewhere where I didn't expect. So,
Well, I'm really glad that you shared your story for a number of reasons. Firstly, to show the importance of reevaluating your career and knowing that it's not set in stone and that actually you can change direction and pivot if something doesn't suit you anymore. So for any listeners who are listening that are, whatever level in the company or whatever phase of their career, it's never too late to reassess and look at your career in a different way. And I also love the way that you mention kind of those transferable skills and how you can change industry, but still have so many wonderful and amazing skills that you'll bring to the table with you that can shine just as brightly in a different space. And finally, you said something there, and I don't know if you realize you said it, but you said I just can't wait to see where I go. So it's like your path isn't paved anymore, and you're more open to actually a bit more flexibility and where the journey may take you. And I love that so much. Thanks for sharing.
well, thank you for sharing your story. And I guess that leads me into my next question about just being really curious about, were there any specific tools or strategies that you used throughout your career, and, you know, what you continue to use to drive your career forward?
Yeah, totally. There are, and this definitely evolves. So these are things that I've picked up along the way, and I'm sure as my career progresses, there are other things that I may pick up. So maybe we'll do another one in 10 years' time. It might change slightly. But for the moment, let me share some of the things that I personally do when it comes to thinking about my career planning and moving it forward that may be helpful to anyone listening. So let's start firstly with what I did in Waitrose. And that is really consider the possibilities. So, where do you want to be in the future? And think about your future. Think with the future in mind. Where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself? Where do you imagine yourself? And try to capture that vision. But I'd say don't just think about a profession, also think about a lifestyle, motivators, what motivates you, what do you enjoy, what don't you enjoy, what type of work environments, all those things that you can take into account as you start to consider new career moves. And there are absolutely tools that you can use for this. So they're either, free or inexpensive, and a quick search on the internet will absolutely provide you with plenty of options. And I'll share a link with you so you can share with the listeners afterwards a tool that I have used, an inexpensive tool. It's not completely free, but inexpensive. So that might be helpful. So that's kind of number one. Number two is do your research. So actually, don't do what I did in my Waitrose example, which was dive straight in. You might want to be a bit more prepared than that. I was very naive at the time. But nowadays, I would definitely do my research. So, start thinking about, well, if that's where I want to be, how do I get there? And there are a couple of ways that I personally would go about doing that. So I'd already probably find somebody in that role, and aren't we lucky that we have LinkedIn these days that provides us with this huge network of, possibilities, these people that we can directly connect with. And I think I'm in LinkedIn every day, doing something or another, but it definitely is the tool to go to when you want to find somebody who's walked the path that you aspire to walk. So have a little look at their path. What have they done previously? How did they get to where they've got to? You can share all types of things, job experience, skills, certifications, all of those things are housed within LinkedIn. So it's really easy to see the path that somebody's walked. And there's no harm in trying to replicate some of that. Also, if you're brave enough, reach out. Why don't you connect?
Yeah, that was actually the advice when I was transitioning in industries. That was the advice I got from another friend who was a teacher who did the same thing, came into learning and development. She was like, LinkedIn is your best friend. Like,
Right.
your profile needs to speak. You need to speak, talk to people, network. The
Yes.
power of networking, I feel like we could have a whole episode about it because it's very influential.
I think so too. And underutilized, actually. It's kind of something that we've spoke personally about, isn't it? You know, tapping into our network. Because what that does is it really accelerates you. You know, why are you kind of guessing when you could just ask the source themselves? And, you know, anybody who's signed up to LinkedIn knows that it's a way of connecting. So there's no harm in dropping somebody a message. The worst that could happen is they might just ignore you. Okay. The best that could happen is they might respond and then accelerate your journey. So, yeah, if you're brave enough, absolutely reach out. That would be a cool thing to do. The other thing I would definitely do is check the internet for job descriptions. Like, you can find every job description on the internet and discover what skills and qualifications are needed for a certain job. And as well as, we're lucky we've got kind of AI these days. So tap into kind of your Copilot, which is the Epicor approved AI agent, but ChatGPT or whichever one you use, and just ask it, you know, how would you transition from the job you're in today into the job you want in the future? And it will probably give you a whole learning plan, which is pretty cool and save you a whole chunk of time. So that's kind of a couple of things to do. But once you're kind of clear on the requirements for your role, so you kind of know where you want to go and what you might need to do to get there, you really need to take a good look at yourself in this space at the moment and start to think about your own skills. And as you said, Roxanne, which ones are transferable, which ones will take me into the space that I want to go into, or, you know, or what gaps do I have as well? And a simple SWOT analysis. So that's looking at your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats is a great tool to get started. Really easy. And you can find templates for that online. Or something that I've personally done, and I often recommend to individuals, is a quick skill assessment. So just use an Excel spreadsheet or a piece of paper and a pen, if you like, if you're old school, and list out all the skills and qualifications for the role that you aspire to be in, and then rate your competency in those skills. And you can do that from kind of no experience to expert. And then that helps you to kind of understand, like, okay, well, these are the things that I'm probably going to be really good at, but these are the areas that I need some work in. And that can really help you with thinking about planning your kind of development later on. Next thing I would do is advise listeners to do something they may not usually consider, actually, and that's think about their future stakeholders. So normally when we kind of think about careers, we're thinking about, okay, what skills do I need and how do I get those skills? But it's bigger than that. So who are the people that are going to be influential in your move? And do they know about you? And if they do, like, what do they think about you? And if they don't, how are you going to get noticed by them? So stakeholder mapping can really help with this. And, you know, in my career, if I think about some of my career moves, I've really tried hard to get under the nose of the people that are influential in my next career move or my future job role. And this can look really different for many people. But for me, a technique that I found is finding some opportunity and sharing that with my future manager. So, for example, the role I'm sat in, Director of Talent and Leadership Development at Epicor, I only dreamed of getting this job, you know, 5 years ago when I started with the company. And I just thought, that's the seat that I'd like to be in. And I can remember thinking, well, how do I make our CHRO notice me? She doesn't know who I am today. And that's a problem because she's the one that hires into that position. So you kind of got to be a bit strategic about that. And the way that I did it was thinking about, okay, well, how can I show her that I'm bringing value to the organization? So if I was doing something that was quite innovative, I would share it with her. Juliet, I'm doing this over in my space, but something you might want over in HR too. Would you take a look at it? And eventually she was starting to take a look at my stuff.
Yeah.
And, it might be when I was in Austin, I can remember I was delivering a workshop and I invited her along. I said, Juliet, it'd be really great if you could talk to the new hires. And of course, I wanted her to talk to the new hires. But part of that was actually, I want you to see what I'm doing and to know me and to see my agenda for the class and those types of things.
Yeah. And I think that that's actually really key is I think an element to it is just like being proud of the work that you're putting out and making sure like you're wanting other people at different levels to be able to see the work that you're producing because it's good work. So yeah, definitely like being confident in the work that you're putting out there and having other people notice it.
Totally. And what that doesn't mean, though, I don't want everybody bombarding our CHRO. That is the inappropriate thing to do. So you've got to be careful with these types of things, and it must be appropriate. But if it is appropriate, there's no harm in kind of gently popping your name under the nose of somebody who's influential in your next career move. And then eventually what happened was this seat did become available. And I probably at the time wasn't quite ready for the seat. It would have been a stretch for me, but I was pretty confident that I had most of the skills required for the job. There was a couple that I didn't have yet, but I could work on those. But instead of kind of asking for the job, I was a bit more strategic than that in the sense that I was already mentoring somebody from the team and supporting them with a project. And when this seat became available, I just dropped Juliet a note, who's our CHRO, and just said, I know you're looking for a successor here, but whilst you do that, just letting you know, I do manage an L&D team within Epicor. If you want me to help support the team and you in that transition period, whilst you look for a successor, let me know if I can help in any way. That wasn't me asking for the job, but it was me just letting her know I want to help. I want to be there. And it was that point that she said, are you going to be applying? And then I knew that it would be appropriate for me to apply. So that's kind of a good tip for people to listen.
Nice tips. Well, and another thing is like, I know for me, before this conversation, I didn't really fully realize everything that went into building a career plan. Like I said, when I started, I thought it was one job for the rest of your life. So I honestly just kind of also thought that it was just like another form of goal setting. But aside from the tooling that you use, has there been anything else that has been influential in your career journey?
Yeah, completely. So let me talk about some of that, because you're right. It is bigger than just setting yourself a few goals. You've already heard, it's considering your stakeholders. It's thinking about the direction you want to go in, all of that stuff. So one of the things that has been most influential for me that I do want to mention is my mentors. So I've been so fortunate through my career to have fantastic support from some amazing people who have taught me all different lessons. And you probably know, you pick up different things from different people. But especially in the last 5 years, I've had mentorship from somebody internal to Epicor, and that's Stuart Millward. And he's just helped me immensely. And this type of guidance, honestly, is worth its weight in gold because it really accelerates your career. Your mentor is able to share with you what worked for them and why. And they help you avoid some of the pitfalls that they've experienced. And that only helps you get to your goal quicker. So if there's advice to anybody looking to advance their career, a mentor is a great place to start, thinking about how could a mentor support you in that journey. And at Epicor, you guys are so fortunate because you've got this fantastic mentoring Epicor program, which is global. Anybody can sign up to it and get themselves a mentor. But for anybody outside of Epicor, there are ways to source mentorship, and there's ways of going about that. And you can certainly do a quick search on the internet, which will help you find, it will give you step by step, how do you go about finding a mentor? What are the techniques to ask for mentorship, those types of things. And you can find that super easily. So mentorship has been crucial. It's also being curious about the role beyond the one that you do today.
Mm-hmm.
So as I think about, most of the successes in my career have come from me being curious about other parts of the organization and how I can add value. And as soon as I started being curious, I started to find opportunities where, and that has led to some truly great wins for me, as well as the organizations I've worked for, and has certainly led to some of my promotions. And also, thinking about personal brand as well, something that's often overlooked, but is so important, especially if we go back to one of my previous comments around stakeholder management. Your personal brand speaks to your stakeholders, and what is the message that it's sending them today, and what do you want it to send them in the future, and giving some consideration to who your brand is and how you're portraying that to your audience is very, very important.
I know that when I first onboarded with your team, it was all about creating a consistent brand with us. And I still know that people see like our email signatures and they see our LinkedIn banners and they're just like, I want that. And I think it's because brand helps you stand out. And although we all have a consistent brand with our team, we as a team then stand out to others. So brand is definitely important.
100%. If you think about a new role, whether that's internally or externally, most managers, I can probably say, will turn to LinkedIn to look at a candidate's profile. And especially if it's an external position or whatever, you're looking at, it's the only tool you have. So when somebody applies from outside of Epicor into Epicor, I'm looking at their LinkedIn profile, and it's really the snapshot of them that I have. So it's so important that portrays, what is it telling the people that are looking at it? And if you look at my LinkedIn profile, I'm pretty proud of it. It screams learning. It says that I'm in this space and I'm very active in this space. It has all of my certifications on there. It has my branding on there. It speaks to things like insights discovery and all of that stuff. But that really is the difference between you getting a job over the thousands of other applicants that apply for that role. Sometimes it can be that influential.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I want to move on to the next question, which is really focusing on, as a people manager, how you help other people manage their careers. You mentioned other people being integral to your own career growth. And so I'm curious, as a people manager yourself, what does the support you provide to other people's career journeys look like?
Yeah, such a terrific question. And I'm really, really glad you've asked it. So first of all, this will look different for every manager because we're all different. So what I do won't be what another manager does, for sure. But I would like to help listeners understand what that looks like for me as a people manager, and what I've personally found works well with the people I've been fortunate enough to lead, because some of this, somebody else might want to pick up and utilize. So first for me, it's always about building trust. And that's really taking an interest in the people that I lead, what inspires them, what motivates them, why do they get out of bed in the morning? What do they want to get out of bed for? What are their aspirations? What do they like? What don't they like? Those types of things. And once you really understand those, you can start to show up for them in a way that's meaningful to them. So, for example, if I know that a member of my team has aspirations to lead, then I'm looking at what opportunities can I give that person? How can I find them some stretch? Am I able to provide them coaching in that area? Those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
With each of my team, we spend time considering the future, creating some great goals and meaningful development plans off the back of that. And that's kind of the roadmap to get them there. And I also encourage my team to capture their successes across the year, their growth, certificates, awards, business impact delivered, all of those types of things, and then reflect upon that regularly. Now, ideally, all of those types of things should be captured in a human capital management system. And in Epicor, that is Workday, which is the platform that you guys use. And what that does is, keeping that information in there ensures that your profile is up to date, and it can really make a difference when it comes to promotion or being considered for future opportunities. Because if you think about it, that system is used by all of HR. So let me give you a good example. Maybe there's a new role opportunity opening. Maybe somebody's leaving and we're planning for a successor in a certain role. Well, the HCM could be used by talent acquisition to look at people with the right transferable skills, the people who have the right qualifications, the people who are in the right region or who are willing to relocate to the right region. And that could be utilized to have a conversation about, whether you step into that role or not, which can be super powerful. So if you haven't done so already today, that's a really great way of getting yourself seen, because it's all well and good doing the development, but if nobody knows about it, then nothing's going to happen off the back of it. And, as far as I see it is I can, there's only so much I can do. So I can encourage, and I can advise. And, and I think that's really the right words to use here. I can't ever do it for the individual because that would be wrong, but I can help them to understand what to do, what's worked for me, how to do it, how I might do it, help them to see the importance and provide them with tools that will help them to be successful. Share my experiences and my feedback. And if they want any more support from me, then of course I'll show up in the way that they need me to show up. But the work really does have to come from the individual, and just that support network and advice comes from me as a people leader.
I like hearing about how you were saying you're there to support them. You're not really there to tell them which way to go. You just support them in what they're wanting to pursue. And you're supporting them knowing and understanding the strengths that they bring to the table. I really like what you said about being able to capture your successes and then being able to share them out and documenting those successes. That's super huge. And I know that everything that you've described has made an impact in my life, having you as our director. And it's going to be great to be able to take the key pieces that you provided for support, and then hopefully in the future, one day be able to support someone else in a role. I know that career pathing can take us very far and it provides people many different opportunities, but it definitely does not come without hurdles. Navigating these challenges is part of the career pathing journey. They're bound to happen. So what are some challenges faced when career pathing, and, how can our listeners overcome these challenges?
As I think about this, challenges do differ for everyone, actually. But I can see some main challenges, actually, that I can certainly speak to here and highlight for you. So the first one I see is making career planning a priority. As I look around the business, everybody is so busy. And the problem with that is that, those things that are nice to do's or maybe important, but not urgent, they get dropped. They get pushed to the back, and there's always something more urgent that needs attention. But if we don't prioritize career development, your career, it's just not going to happen. Nobody is going to do it for you. So making it a priority, putting it at the top of your priority list. I hate saying this, but I'm going to say it. Putting your phone down for 15 minutes a day and instead doing 15 minutes of your career plan. It doesn't have to all happen immediately. It can happen over time, but scheduling that time. It's really, really important to give space for your future and to think about where you want to go. So prioritizing is the first one. Secondly, I don't really think people know where to start. It's a big deal, isn't it? Kind of going from one place to another. And it's like, well, how do I even go about that? So, and it's not only starting, it's kind of keeping momentum on that. So I'm hoping that utilizing some of the things that I've spoken about today will really help our listeners not only get started, but also plan out how they'll make things happen over the long term. And finally, I think, and I could be wrong, that there may be a fear around career journey for some people managers in the sense that they're worried about losing talent to another department, another role, or potentially another organization. Because, well, who's going to do that job if that person goes? We don't have time to train somebody up. Like there's no time. There's nobody else to do that job, but my advice to any people manager that may be listening to this and does feel that way about an individual on their team is that holding somebody back will not stop them from leaving. It just won't. What it will do is they will just leave anyway, and you'll just be very unprepared, and that there won't be kind of that great conversation that can be had around how you transition somebody out of a job and that type of thing. So you may even push them further away. So finding a way to have that conversation, even though it might be difficult, is so important. So if a member of your team aspires to move to a different team, a different role, whatever that might be, then work on a plan of transition together. And, you can create a succession plan that helps move somebody into the space so that that talent can move on to another space. And likewise, if we have individuals listening that think, I don't know how to talk to my manager about this, I'm scared. Why don't you come prepared with a succession plan? And you can quick Google search again, what is a succession plan? How do I do one? Thinking about who's going to take your space. And you may go to your manager and say, hey, I've thought about this. I think so-and-so I could train. And here's the plan of how I train them. That's a much easier conversation to have, and definitely one that we need to start having more often.
Yeah, career conversations are influential in this entire process of creating your career path. And there definitely may be hesitancies from both sides about the manager having that conversation with, their employee or vice versa. And I remember hearing once managers will actually look really good whenever their employee goes off and thrives, even if it is on another team, a different function, a different role. So being able to just support them, like we had talked about just a little bit ago.
It's so true. And we've got to get better at this, because if we think about our younger generations, we don't have jobs for life anymore. We just don't. That's a fact. So, if you're a people manager, getting the skills to have these types of conversations and being confident and prepared and okay with them is going to be so important as you thrive in the people manager space.
Thank you, Tony, so much for all of your wonderful answers today. As we wrap up, I love to ask this question to all of my guests, which is, what is one piece of advice you would give yourself at the beginning of your career?
Oh, there's so many. there's too many. But I'm going to use a quote that I think Walt Disney claims, but I don't think is actually his. But they definitely use it lots in Disney. And that's, if you can dream it, you can do it. And it's dream big, plan small, and those tiny steps will absolutely take you anywhere you want to go.
I'm definitely going to keep that in my back pocket. That's really great advice. I know you shared really wonderful tools with us today and different strategies and approaches on how to navigate our career path. Are there any other valuable resources that you want to share on today's topic?
Yes, I can absolutely do that. So if the listeners out there really like podcasts, there are some dedicated solely to careers. So for example, there's one called Squiggly Careers. I thought I might struggle with that word then, which gives you insight, advice, and practical tools to inspire action and help you take control of your development. They also have a book. So if reading is more your thing, it was a #1 Sunday Times business bestseller. So that might be something of interest. And I can share links to both of those with you. And as I mentioned before, career path quizzes and some of the tooling I've mentioned utilize what we've all got access to, and that's the internet and kind of our AI agents, because they are so helpful when it comes to career journey or learning plans and those types of things.
Thank you, Tony, so much for all of those wonderful resources that you're sharing with us. You can also find all of these resources linked on our EpicNet page if you are an Epicor employee. So make sure to go and look for those links. Thank you again, Tony Checketts, for joining us and all of the wonderful insight that you brought to today's topic.
Thank you, Roxanne.
To everyone who tuned in, thank you for listening, and always keep learning.